You're standing outside someone's front door. It's late. The date went well. You both know what's about to happen. There's that tiny pause where nobody says anything. One of you leans in. The other doesn't move away. And for a few seconds, two people press their lips together in one of the strangest behaviors any animal has ever invented. Think about it. You're voluntarily putting one of the most bacteria-filled parts of your body directly against someone else's face. Sometimes with complete strangers. Sometimes in front of your parents. Sometimes while fireworks explode in the background because Hollywood has convinced us that's the appropriate way to end an evening. If you described kissing to an alien, they'd probably assume humans had lost their minds. So, why do we kiss? Who was the first person that looked at another human and thought, you know what would improve this interaction? Face touching. It's such a normal part of modern life that we rarely stop to question it. But here's the strange thing. Nobody actually knows exactly where kissing came from. Not historians, not anthropologists, not evolutionary biologists. And the deeper scientists dig into the question, the weirder the answer becomes. Because kissing might be older than civilization, older than farming, possibly older than our own species, or it might be one of humanity's greatest cultural inventions. Let's start with something surprising. Not everyone kisses. That sounds impossible. Movies make it seem universal. Every romantic comedy ends with one. Every fairy tale eventually gets there. Every Disney prince somehow knows exactly what to do. But when anthropologists started documenting cultures around the world, they discovered something unexpected. Many societies had no tradition of romantic kissing whatsoever. Researchers examining ethnographic records found that fewer than half of documented human cultures practiced what we'd recognize as romantic lip-to-lip kissing. That means for tens of millions of people throughout history, the idea simply didn't exist. Some cultures hugged, some rubbed noses, some pressed foreheads together, some sniffed each other's faces. Yes, sniffed. Which sounds ridiculous until you realize your dog has been saying hello that way its entire life. Humans aren't nearly as original as we'd like to think. This discovery caused a huge problem. If kissing is an evolutionary instinct, why don't all humans do it? Most instincts are universal. People everywhere smile. Babies everywhere cry. Everyone startles at loud noises. But kissing? Apparently optional. That made some scientists wonder whether kissing wasn't biological at all. Maybe it was just an invention, like forks, or chess, or complaining about Mondays. But then another piece of evidence appeared, one that complicated everything. Ancient Mesopotamian texts dating back roughly 4,000 years contain references to kissing, not just between lovers. Parents kissed children, friends kissed friends, people kissed rulers, lovers kissed passionately enough that scribes apparently thought it worth writing down. Ancient Egyptian art shows affectionate embraces that may have included kissing. Ancient Sanskrit literature describes lovers kissing in remarkable detail. Greek writers discussed it. Roman writers practically categorized it. In fact, the Romans had different words depending on what kind of kiss you were giving. A kiss on the cheek, a kiss between family members, a romantic kiss. They organized kisses the way modern people organize streaming subscriptions. By the time recorded history begins, kissing is already everywhere, which raises an uncomfortable question. If every early civilization already knew what kissing was, how much older is it? Because writing only appeared around 5,000 years ago. Humans had already existed for hundreds of thousands of years before anyone thought to invent paperwork. If kissing existed before writing, archaeology has a problem. Lips don't fossilize. Affection leaves terrible archaeological evidence. Nobody excavates a cave and discovers two prehistoric lovers frozen mid-smooch. Unfortunately for anthropologists, romance is biodegradable, so they have to work backward. Which brings us to babies. Stay with me, because babies may hold the biggest clue in this entire mystery. Long before grocery stores, long before baby food, long before blenders, parents had a problem. How do you feed an infant food that's too tough to chew? Our ancestors discovered an answer, used across countless cultures. They chewed food themselves, then transferred it directly into the baby's mouth. It's called premastication, which is a scientific word meaning exactly what it sounds like. Someone else chews your dinner first. Modern people usually find the idea horrifying. Ancient people called it Tuesday. This wasn't rare. It was incredibly common. Birds do it. Great apes do it. Many mammals do it. Even today, some human societies still practice it. And here's the important part. To transfer food efficiently, your mouths have to touch. Not romantically, not passionately, just practically. Some anthropologists believe romantic kissing may have evolved from this parental behavior. Chimpanzees also kiss after fights. Researchers have watched two chimps scream at each other, chase each other through the forest, then calmly embrace and touch mouths afterward. It's reconciliation, a physical signal saying, "We're okay." That matters enormously, because humans aren't the only species where mouths carry social meaning. The behavior existed before we did. Our last common ancestor with chimpanzees lived around 6 or 7 million years ago. Nobody knows whether that ancestor kissed, but if both modern species independently retained mouth-to-mouth affection, the possibility becomes difficult to ignore. Maybe kissing wasn't invented. Infants already associated mouth contact with comfort, safety, food, love. As adults, that emotional association may have carried over into pair bonding. It's an elegant theory, but like many elegant theories, it has problems. Because if mouth contact naturally became romantic, we'd expect every culture to kiss. Remember? They don't. So maybe that's not the whole story. Let's go even further back. Before civilization, before Homo sapiens, before language, to our closest living relatives. Chimpanzees kiss. Bonobos kiss even more. Bonobos are fascinating. If humans solve awkward social situations by making small talk, bonobos solve almost everything with physical affection. Conflict, affection. Sharing food, affection. Meeting someone new, usually affection. They're essentially the world's friendliest primates. They also kiss. Sometimes gently, sometimes passionately, sometimes with tongues. Maybe it was inherited. Now here's where things become really strange. Your lips are ridiculously sensitive. Compared with almost every other part of your body, they're packed with nerve endings. Your fingertips get most of the credit. Your lips deserve some. A light touch across the lips activates an enormous portion of your brain, far more than touching your shoulder, or your back, or your elbow, which honestly has probably never starred in a romantic movie. The human brain devotes incredible processing power to the mouth. That's useful for speaking, useful for eating, but it also means kissing delivers an avalanche of sensory information almost instantly. Texture, pressure, temperature, movement, even scent. Especially scent. Because while you're kissing someone, you're also breathing them in. And humans are constantly smelling each other without realizing it. Your nose doesn't stop working just because your attention is somewhere else. Every breath carries tiny chemical signals. Body odor, skin chemistry, immune system markers. Scientists studying attraction discovered something remarkable. People often prefer the scent of individuals whose immune systems differ from their own. One explanation involves genes known as the major histocompatibility complex. Different combinations may produce children with broader immune defenses. In other words, your brain might partially evaluate genetic compatibility through smell before you've consciously decided whether someone is attractive. Romance gets a lot less mystical when your immune system starts reviewing resumes. Now imagine kissing. You've just moved your face as close as physically possible. If attraction involves scent, kissing creates the perfect testing environment. Researchers have even found that women, particularly during certain phases of the menstrual cycle, may place greater importance on kissing early in relationships than men do. One hypothesis is that kissing provides subconscious biological information useful for mate assessment. Nobody thinks you're consciously analyzing immune genes between kisses. Your brain is doing the paperwork without asking permission. Let's also talk about chemistry. Because your brain absolutely loses its composure during a kiss, dopamine increases. That's the reward chemical. Oxytocin rises, often called the bonding hormone. Stress hormones decrease. Heart rate climbs. Blood vessels dilate. Entire networks involved in emotion and reward become dramatically more active. Your brain reacts to kissing like something very important is happening. Because from an evolutionary perspective, it is. Finding a trustworthy partner may have been one of the most important decisions any ancient human ever made. Pick badly, you might not survive. Pick well, you might raise children together for decades. A kiss, biologically speaking, isn't trivial. It's a high-speed compatibility interview, with significantly less paperwork. There's another theory that's equally fascinating. Kissing as trust. Think about what you're doing. You're closing your eyes, reducing awareness, allowing someone inside your personal space, exposing one of the most vulnerable parts of your body, your face, your throat, your breathing. You're demonstrating that you don't expect violence. For ancient humans living in dangerous environments, that kind of vulnerability carried enormous meaning. Trust wasn't abstract, it was survival. A person close enough to kiss you was close enough to hurt you. Choosing not to mattered. Some evolutionary psychologists argue that affectionate touch evolved partly because it communicates safety more effectively than words ever could. You can fake a smile. It's much harder to fake calm physical closeness over long periods. Which brings us to one of history's strangest observations. Kissing has repeatedly terrified governments. Seriously. Roman emperors regulated certain public displays of affection. In medieval Europe, kisses could finalize legal agreements. Elsewhere, they symbolized loyalty to kings. Religious traditions sometimes transformed kisses into sacred rituals, then later discouraged romantic versions. Different societies kept reinventing rules around the exact same behavior. Why? Because kisses communicate relationships instantly. Who may kiss whom? When? Where? Those questions reveal how a society thinks about family, power, marriage, status, religion. A kiss isn't just affection. It's culture compressed into 2 seconds. Now let's return to something we mentioned earlier. Some cultures don't kiss romantically. Does that disprove evolution? Not necessarily, because biology rarely dictates exact behaviors. It provides tendencies. Culture decides how they're expressed. Humans everywhere form bonds. Not everyone does it the same way. Some cultures kiss. Some exchange elaborate greetings. Some rub noses. Among the Maori of New Zealand, the hongi involves gently pressing noses and foreheads together. In parts of the Arctic, traditional greetings emphasized shared breath and scent, rather than lips. Many mammals identify each other primarily through smell. Humans may simply have developed multiple cultural solutions built around the same biological systems. Connection, trust, recognition, affection. Different rituals, same goals. Here's another question. Why don't we remember our first kiss very well? Actually, many people remember it with astonishing clarity. Psychologists studying autobiographical memory have long noticed that emotionally significant events become deeply encoded, especially first experiences. First love, first heartbreak, first kiss. Your brain effectively stamps them with a giant label reading, "Important. Save this." That's because emotionally charged moments activate memory systems more intensely. Evolution rewarded remembering major social experiences. Ancient humans benefited from remembering allies, enemies, partners, who could be trusted, who couldn't. Strong emotion made useful memories stick. Modern romance inherited the same machinery. There's also something beautifully inefficient about kissing. Unlike eating, it serves no direct nutritional purpose. Unlike running, it doesn't move you anywhere. Unlike building shelter, it doesn't keep out rain. Evolution usually favors efficiency. And yet humans spend countless hours throughout history doing something with no obvious practical outcome. Except, it isn't impractical. It strengthens relationships, reduces stress, communicates affection, reinforces commitment, creates memories, synchronizes emotion. Sometimes the behaviors that look least productive become the glue holding entire social lives together, which is exactly what happened with storytelling. Music, laughter, dance, none of them build shelters. All of them build communities. Kissing may belong on that list. One more thing. Hollywood has convinced us that every perfect romance ends with a kiss. History tells a more interesting story. For thousands of years, kisses meant dozens of different things. Respect, forgiveness, peace, loyalty, family, spiritual devotion. Romance became only one chapter in a much older history. That's easy to forget, because modern culture zooms in on one version while ignoring the rest. But ancient humans likely experienced physical affection in ways that were woven throughout everyday life. Parents comforting children, friends greeting each other, communities celebrating together, partners choosing one another, the same behavior, different meanings. So, who invented kissing? The honest answer is that we probably never will know. Maybe it slowly emerged from parental feeding. Maybe it came from our primate ancestors. Maybe it developed independently in different places because human biology naturally nudged people toward close facial contact. Or maybe all of those explanations contain part of the truth. Human history is rarely tidy. What we do know is this. By the time civilizations began recording their stories, kissing was already ancient. It had survived migrations across continents. The rise and fall of kingdoms, the invention of writing, agriculture, religion, empires. It quietly followed humans through every chapter of history, which says something remarkable. For all the extraordinary technology we've invented, the satellites, the smartphones, the artificial intelligence, The machines that let us speak instantly across oceans, some of our most meaningful moments still depend on one of the oldest pieces of human biology we possess. Two people, a few inches apart, trusting each other enough to close the distance. Maybe that's why kisses have lasted so long. Not because evolution demanded them, not because every culture invented them, but because whenever humans discovered a way to say, "I choose you," without speaking, it turned out lips were surprisingly good at carrying the message. The first people who ever kissed are lost to history. Their names disappeared tens of thousands of years ago. Their homes became dust. Their stories vanished. But somehow, their gesture survived, and every time two people lean toward each other in that brief moment of silence before a kiss, they're repeating a tiny piece of human history that may be older than civilization itself.